Even knew to dance.
No.
Usually we got to tell our guests, you got to shake your ass a little bit.
He was feeling it.
Everybody, podcast number 96, number 5 on YouTube. Jerome, is that right? Yeah, number 5.
Right on.
Anyways, today we have a very interesting guest. He's got quite the history behind him, and I just found out. Can I say who you're friends with?
You can.
Dennis Rodman.
Oh,
I knew he would perk up because he's a big Bulls fan.
Yeah.
Anyways, before we get started, I want to talk about our sponsor, Olafson and Jones, chartered professional accountants with experience and knowledge in key areas that are important and value to their clients. They offer a full range of services for corporate, personal, and not-for-profit organizations, providing made-to-measure practical solutions in audit, accounting, taxation, financial management, controllership, business consulting, and more. Contact them at 204-338-5972. Also members here at Fit Club. Let me ask you a question. Do you have any interest in accounting? Or did you glaze over when I was saying that?
I have absolutely no interest in accounting. I hire accountants.
Yeah.
One of the only courses that I took that I almost failed was one of my accounting courses.
I can tell you this. What I've learned in the last little while is building wealth, you got to understand the taxation system. Because making money is by not paying taxes.
Yeah.
One of the ways. That's some of the passive income.
So I told you I did real estate, right?
Yeah.
So the more you redevelop properties, you can write it off against your taxes.
Yeah, of course.
So I've been doing that for years, man.
Like I have a lot of friends who are employees, right? They have their regular 9-to-5s or whatever, and everybody bitches about paying taxes. And so I'm like, there's a handful of things that you can do legally to not pay taxes or to pay a lot less taxes, but nobody will take 5 seconds to educate themselves on it. It's crazy. But
buy one house and redo it.
Yeah.
See what happens.
Yeah, for sure. Anyways, I'm going to do your intro for you, okay? Just so everybody knows who we're talking with here. Where are you? Oh, here we go. Today's guest grew up in a middle-class family with the greatest parents, but ended up losing everything on the streets. He was in organized crime and at one point was looking at 68 years in U.S. prison. Jesus, what did you do? He's highly educated with 4 university degrees and practiced as a doctor ever since. He's been in recovery almost 20 years and has opened sober living homes in Winnipeg with 31 beds and also opened Aurora Recovery Center, which has a 70-bed drug and alcohol treatment center with a detox. Everybody, let's welcome Mr. Ian Rabb.
welcome, Ian.
Thanks, guys.
Such an impressive resume on this guy, eh?
Yeah.
Damn. And he's friends with Dennis Rodman.
Most importantly, I work with Edgewood Health Network now, which is the largest treatment provider in the country.
Okay, is that Winnipeg?
No, it's all over the country. We're all the way from Nanaimo to.
So Edgewood has facilities in different provinces.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. So and how many? I knew you had put that into your bio as well. I just had to cover so many things.
Yeah, of course.
Right?
That's just what I'm doing now.
Yeah. No, that's cool. So let's talk. The first thing that comes out, obviously, is this whole you avoided going to U.S. prison for 68 years, and you were part of organized crime. So that is my number one question. You got to tell me that story.
Well, first of all, I didn't plan it. No one does.
Okay.
I was living in Chicago. I lived in Chicago for 13 years, in Denver for 2.
Okay. Sorry.
Yeah.
How old are you now, and how old were you then? Just give us how old.
You don't ask men their age these days.
Yeah, I do all the time, actually. give us an idea. How old were you then?
56.
Okay, so you're still a young cat.
And I was about got involved in that world around 28.
Okay.
Late actually, 26, 28 years old.
Okay.
And I was in Chicago, and I got involved by accident in the drug trade. I always joke I'm Jewish and cheap.
Yeah.
So I would always buy drugs and buy lots, and I had lots of money. I was both in optometry school and graduated from optometry school and working, so there was access to cash.
Okay.
And
so by accident, you started buying big quantities of drugs. By accident.
Well, by accident, but that's not how I got involved in organized crime.
Okay.
So my entrepreneurial spirit got me in trouble at first. My first out of 7 arrests was plain stupidity.
Okay.
But after that, I got connected with some people in Chicago who were very impressed with at the time, ecstasy, ketamine, GHB, that kind of world, which was not part of organized crime at the time.
Okay.
At that time, it was just really cocaine. The bikers had a little meth, there were no real opiates. It was a different world.
Yep.
And I kind of brought that world to organized crime. They found me and started testing me. And many different tests that I went through, and I participated with them in many things beyond drug and alcohol trafficking and trading. We had a breaking lab, a meth lab like Breaking Bad. I mean, it was a big organization.
So who was testing you? Sorry, I want to backtrack a little bit.
So you don't just put your hand up and say, hey, I want to be in the mob,
Right?
Or you just don't do that.
Yeah.
So I just started meeting people, and they started
Okay.
introducing me to more people, and then the tests started happening. Like,
So, and who are you dealing with? You're dealing with the mob.
The
Is this
mob.
what
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
There's a number of families in Chicago.
Okay, understood. Got it.
That's where it ended up. I mean, there was a point in time where I was, I always say this. I was on a yacht on Lake Michigan where like 7 of us got on and 6 got off. That was my first test. Like, how are you going to react?
Yeah.
Do you just walk off the boat and pretend like nothing happened? Like, those are the kind of things that I witnessed, and they test you that way. And I mean, I was also in the sex trade for fun, not because I needed the money. And one of my jobs in organized crime was taking care of women whose husbands were murdered. So there was a number. We did a lot. There was a lot of money laundering operations. So I got really involved, not because I really wanted to, but by accident. And of course, who doesn't like the power and the money and the control?
Absolutely.
That goes along with what the behaviors and the actions that you're participating in.
Yeah. So this would have taken you through how many years of your life?
So I by the time I actually, when I left Chicago and left that organization and working as an optometrist in Chicago, I asked to leave. I said, I'll disappear overnight. I was already, at that point, I was becoming a liability to the organization. I had had a couple of arrests that were by accident, where I was, fortunately, I got out of jail because of who I knew, not what I knew. And I knew things were bad, and things got really bad where I started losing my homes. And so I asked to leave, and I moved to Denver, Colorado. And Denver is really so I became the organizer of disorganized crime, and that's where I started getting arrests, where the FBI and the DEA, and there was a lot of interaction with law enforcement starting at that point.
Are you American?
Born? No, I was born in Winnipeg, born and raised here.
Okay. So how did you end up in the States doing all this?
So I went to University of Waterloo first. And then I moved from Waterloo to Chicago to go to optometry school. And,
really?
And stayed there, yeah.
And so today you're an optometrist?
I don't practice. I haven't practiced since I moved back to Winnipeg 20 years ago. When I got back here, I was not licensed in Canada, first of all, and I went into our family business, which was property management and development with my brother until 5 or 6 years ago. Well, 15 years ago, but really 5 or 6 years ago when I went into the addiction treatment business.
Okay. So would you say that the experience of being in organized crime turned you into a drug addict?
No, absolutely not.
No.
You
were participating in drugs, I'm assuming, when you were there, when you were selling it.
Of course I was.
Okay.
I mean, I'm a guy that believes that the booze bone's connected to the pot bone's connected to the coke bone, it's connected to the X bone, whatever. And we end up wherever our drug of choice is, right? My number one drug of choice was crystal meth. I used crystal meth almost every day for 11 years.
Really?
Almost, yeah. And so that was my drug of choice. I still used every other drug around that to go up and down and party and dance and whatever, sex and whatever else I was doing, right?
Yeah.
But the truth is I don't think drugs and alcohol are the problem anyway. We were talking about this a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
I think that there's two things that happen. That first of all, there's a genetic link to alcoholism or addiction in our family, and there's not a family tree that one of us doesn't fall out of. Let's be honest, right? And then I think there's childhood trauma, and childhood trauma could be fancy or real, right? It could be not making a hockey team. It could be as bad as sexual or physical or emotional abuse. It could be a parent that's ill. It could be a divorce. It could there are so many things that can trigger the trauma in a child.
Yeah.
That ultimately, I think that we search for something, and then that something becomes drugs or alcohol that makes us okay, or sex, or shopping, or work, or whatever it is.
I know RJ and I probably agree on something like this as far as using, and I'm going to use this and maybe you'll agree with it, as far as using the excuse of trauma to become a drug addict or alcoholic. Off camera, you kind of straightened me out as far as, I said I had a drug problem, but I was never sexually molested. And you immediately said, well, sometimes it's not that big. Like you said, didn't make the hockey team. Do you think it's fair that we should have people who would suggest or maybe enable that it's okay to become a drug addict or an alcoholic for something as basic as not making a hockey team, or maybe somebody told you look funny or something like that? Where's the line that we stop saying, okay, is trauma everything?
Right. I agree with you, but it's not a choice. Like how we grow up, and as kids, we grow up in these environments. You don't know what the sensitivities are. There are other things involved, like generational trauma. There's other things involved, like how our family unit works. I mean, it's not just, I didn't make a hockey team.
Yeah, or whatever. I understand.
And the other thing is that there's not an I don't think there's an excuse for becoming a drug addict or alcoholic. It's a disease, man.
Yeah.
No one wakes up and says, I want to be a drug addict. Like I didn't, when the teacher said, what do you want to be when you grow up?
Yeah.
Drug addict was not on the list.
The whole disease thing, I don't know. What do you think, RG? Do you think drugs, would you define it as a disease? I mean, if I woke up with lung cancer, that's waking up with a disease. But if I wake up as an alcoholic, I've kind of been participating in becoming an alcoholic. I don't know if it's a disease. Like I brought it on myself.
Well, sort of. I don't believe I had a choice whether or not I used or drank or not.
Yeah.
Like the choice was removed from me. I had it, for whatever reason, it solved my problem, and then I became addicted. Like it was the solution to my problems, not my problem.
Yeah.
And then you become addicted. You can't stop. You don't know how many times listen, 4 university degrees, good parents. My dad just died, but my parents were married 65 years. I can't tell you that I didn't come from a good, loving environment.
Mm-hmm.
There would have been no reason for me to become addicted. And there would be no reason that I couldn't quit because I knew better, but I couldn't quit. Every time I got arrested, I left the jail. Cook County Jail was not a fun place in Chicago. And I left the jail saying to myself, I'm never going to do this again. I can't end up here. Like I grew up in Tuxedo, like like Bubba would have been my buddy, right? Like it was just not a place I wanted to end up. And as I was leaving the jail, I called a dealer or I had drugs at home or whatever it was, but I could not stop myself no matter what.
Yeah.
The bottom becomes the bottom, but when's the bottom? When do we hit the bottom is the question.
Yeah.
So like we were talking about, I think there are lots of people that don't cross that line where they, like I said, have a child, get married, a life event, a parent, something, a job, something opens their mind. They have a moment of clarity and they say, I can't do this anymore. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm not going to do this anymore. And they quit and they have a perfectly good life after that. Mm-hmm. Other people, I have known lots that have done that. And then 20 years later, they retire or 30 years later. And the first thing they go back to is booze. Yeah. And they end up in trouble with booze. So I don't think it's really important to sit and talk about why people have the problem. Mm-hmm. People got the problem. Now there's a solution. And I always say to people, it's none of my business if you drink or drug. It is my business if you want to quit.
Yeah, fair enough. So anyway, getting back to my point there. So a guy like yourself is going to accept anybody with any problem, and you're going to try and help them as best you can. Do you think there should be somebody like him that stands kind of in between, says, stop with your excuses. Like, you can't use everything as an excuse.
Yes.
What I'm getting at is, in the recovery process, I never went through it. Are you enabled? 100%. Do you enable everybody to have a problem?
No, everybody has a problem. Everybody's enabled by their loved ones. As a matter of fact, the problem with recovery and the problem with drug addicts and alcoholics is their denial. Yeah. Don't even notice I am lying. Denial is so thick they can't even see they got the problem. Yeah. I had no excuse for drinking and using. Mm-hmm. I mean, some psychiatrist at 17 years old told me my mom being sick when I was a child caused me to feel bad about myself and I felt abandoned. I grabbed onto that for 15 years and blamed my mom, my poor mom, for my using of drugs and alcohol and getting in trouble with the law. Mm-hmm. It was such BS. It was such crap. But I believed it. I believed it until my sister looked at me one day. I was living in Denver with my sister when I hit my bottom. And I said to her, if mom treated you like she treated me, you would have ended up in the same position. And I would explain things that happened. And she said to me, Ian, I don't think we grew up in the same house. Right. So I agree with you. So I agree with you on one sense. Yeah. I can say to someone, and I work with thousands of people to this day with addictions. Yeah. I can say to them, look what you've got in your life. You've got a career, you've got a partner, you've got a kid. None of that means anything to them. Yeah. They can't see past their nose. Yeah. They're so full of contempt and prejudice and closed-mindedness. They can't even see what the truth is and what the real problem is.
Yeah, see, I think that's sort of my point is we have to stop enabling people that have so many problems. I understand people have problems.
I agree.
So let me ask you a question. So is there a one-size-fits-all solution to people's problems? Because what Rick is saying is his one-size-fits-all is, listen, stop with your BS, get over it, let's move on. Does that work for everybody?
No, it doesn't work for everybody.
Okay. Does it work for anybody?
It works for lots of people.
Okay.
Yeah.
At a certain point when a person's ready to listen. Yeah. Listen, I call my mom the hammer. I had a mom that said that. Hey, enough's enough. Grow up. Time to grow up. I'm taking away your Visa card at 28 years old. Like it's time, right? Mm-hmm. But you either clue in or you don't.
Yeah.
You know, my clue in, I think you asked me when we were talking, you know, when I was living in Denver and I became that organizer of disorganized crime, it was a DEA agent that saved my life.
Oh, interesting.
She had busted us at a meth lab. The FBI was following us. A group of us that were doing organized crime. We were doing meth production and identity theft. And she pulled me aside. She knew who I was. I guess she did her research. And she said, what the hell are you doing with these people? Like, you're educated. You come from a good family. What are you doing? And I know that I don't know why it happened on that day. I don't know what was going on. But one morning I picked up the phone and I called her. And she was the one I said, I need out. I didn't call a family member. I didn't call a treatment center. I didn't call my sister. I was living in her house. I called this DE agent.
Really?
She showed an interest in me. It was the time when it clicked. And I had a moment of clarity where like, okay, I got to get out of this. And that was the start of my recovery process.
So are you completely against drugs and
No.
alcohol use?
No.
So do you think
if you can use drugs,
Yeah.
all the power to you.
Okay.
Okay?
I agree.
Why? What would that do for first of all, what would that do for our society? What would that say about me as a drug addict that's recovered? Okay, maybe when I was 5 years sober, I was a little jealous of people that could go out and drink and get loaded still.
Yeah.
I had drank enough, got loaded enough, had enough sex, had enough everything for the rest of my life by the time I quit at 34 years old. Like you're laughing because you get it.
I get it. Yeah.
I know you do. Like you totally get it.
Yeah.
So who am I to say don't do it? You know, the sad part is when you recognize someone that's really in trouble and you say, hey, you shouldn't be doing this, and they can't hear you yet.
Yeah.
Right.
That's the sad part.
Yeah, because if you look at marijuana, for instance, I mean, people are doing life for selling marijuana. Now it's pretty much legal everywhere, right? So it's
but so is alcohol.
Yeah, exactly.
People that overuse alcohol.
Yeah.
I mean, alcohol is still the number one problem of all drugs in the world. It's still. I mean, but again, always remember, it's not the substance that's the problem. When a person becomes addicted or they use substances, there's a big difference between a guy that smokes smokes a joint on Friday night, and someone that wakes up every morning and smokes pot.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I'm still not judging the guy that gets up every morning and smokes pot. If he is happy in his life, all the power to him. Who am I to judge?
Yeah. So what would you recommend to a guy like that? Let's say that they are functioning alcoholics, or like you said, they got to get up, they got to wake and bake and throughout the day. How would they know if they're living, let's say, their best life?
Well, I think you have to ask some questions. You have to look at listen, the biggest problem with addiction is connection. Okay? From a child, and I can tell you this from my personal experience and from the thousands of people I've worked with, children that become addicted or in adulthood all feel consciously separated, disconnected, not a part of and separate from. Somehow their skin feels like it doesn't fit. Like there's a hole right in their gut that everybody can see right through. And you can, if you're honest with yourself and you go through your life, you're really an imposter in your life, your whole life, like people that become addicted. Right. So you really have to think about it in twofold. Right. So I would ask someone, and connection is the problem, really not addiction. It's how we connect to people. Relationships are really the issue. So how are you relating to your wife and kids? How are you are you on your third wife? Like, should we talk about that? Like, I mean, like whatever
it's not them.
Whatever the question is around. So are your substances interfering with your life? Do you lie on the couch and eat chips instead of taking your kids to the skating rink? Like, let's talk about life. And then you can start looking at if substances are affecting their life, and then if they really have a problem.
So what's a way that somebody can actually do that assessment? Like, how do you categorize it? Like me personally, before I go to bed, like, I believe in God, and so I pray, and I always rate different areas of my life: my fitness, my family, my finances, and my faith.
On your own.
On my own.
Okay.
So every night I do that. So is there something that you would recommend for somebody to kind of just a simple process to start analyzing?
If you could teach everybody you come in contact with what you just said, we would have a perfect world.
Okay.
I know, I'm not calling you perfect. I didn't meet you till today, but I'm telling you, if we could teach people, and I don't care what their faith's in. I don't care if it's God or dogs. I don't it doesn't matter.
Funny he says that. God and dogs. Right. That's how it is.
Right. So it doesn't matter to me, right? Like, honestly. But if we can instill those values into people,
Mm-hmm.
we might have a chance to keep people out of addiction. Because ultimately, I don't know. Did you do any psychology studying ever? Have you heard of Carl Jung?
No.
He's one of the two most famous psychologists in the world from the 30s. Him and Freud.
Okay.
Freud was his teacher.
Yep.
Like he went that far back.
Okay.
He was involved kind of in the beginnings of Alcoholics Anonymous, although he played a role in the beginning of Alcoholics Anonymous, even though he didn't know he did.
Mm-hmm.
And he treated someone of a very wealthy family. They took a boat to Switzerland from America. The guy got drunk on the boat on the way home, but he came out a few years later and said the thirst of an alcoholic and an addict is a thirst for wholeness. It's not a thirst for alcohol. It's not a thirst for drugs. If we can fill ourselves, I mean, organized sports work. Like there's lots of things that can work that can fulfill that void and make someone whole. And so really what we're having in our society, and I'm a believer of this, I go back to Carl Jung, we have a problem with wholeness. And everybody is looking for something on the outside to make them feel good. I mean, just look at social media. Like we're developing, whether they have trauma or not, we are developing a bunch of youth that are going to be traumatized and in trouble because of what social media has done.
Right.
So
Because they don't feel like they can't compare to the next person on Instagram. Is that what you mean?
or they're trying to, so they're making their pictures look like it, but on the inside they don't feel that way. Their life is not that way, so they're living a lie. And that's the same kind of process that people that I believe have addiction in childhood, and they're not using, obviously, and they move through their life that you're an imposter. You just don't feel right. Like you're trying to, everything on the outside is what makes you feel good on the inside.
Yeah.
And wholeness is the problem.
What about when somebody says to you, I'm still trying to find myself. I want to know who I am. Like, when does that stop?
Again, I'm not going to be a judge of that.
Yeah.
Listen, I want to tell you something. As long as someone is seeking,
Yeah.
we have a chance with them.
Right.
I think that's a very good question. I want to find myself. Go for it. Read every book. Go to whatever you got to go to. Go meditate. Go do. I have to say, I tried everything before I tried the 12-step fellowships. 12-step fellowships. I tried everything. I remember I met a girl, and she, wanted me to lie under a copper pyramid with different stones all over my body. I mean, I wanted to sleep with her, but the truth is that I really was,
Honesty.
I was looking at, I was searching for a long time. I lived in Israel for a while. I'm a Jewish kid. Like I was searching for an answer for a really long time until I ultimately found it.
So do you think people actually come to that conclusion, like, this is who I am, like, this is what I do?
In what way?
In any way, right? So I had a discussion with a guy yesterday, and he wants to do this career, and then 5 minutes later he wants to do this next career, and 5 minutes later he's doing a different career. So he's like, I'm always searching myself. I look at it as like, hey, yeah, you're bettering yourself. But I'm a person that's like, you pick one thing, you do it awesome. But again, one shoe doesn't fit all.
That's true.
Yeah.
And some people need multiple things to do to be successful.
Or
And-
feel fulfilled.
or to fulfill themselves. But again, who are we to judge?
Yeah.
I mean, if that guy asks for help, we help.
Yeah.
If the guy just wants to flander, let him flander.
Yeah. I think that takes a lot of learning. That's kind of
That's
what
been
I've been working on this year.
Hardest thing I ever had to learn.
Yeah.
You see, everybody I met, I found recovery at a certain point in my life, and then I thought everybody I ever met that I came in contact with, that I needed to teach them recovery. Like I had to get them to that point where the ultimate surrender, right? That one big surrender where you just give up and say, okay, I'm willing to do anything. You give me directions.
Yeah.
I mean, that doesn't really work with addiction because addicts are the most defiant, grandiose, terminal unique people in the world. You have to know that about them before you start working with them, because ultimately I'm a firm believer that, addiction is an ego-based disease. We have an ego that's completely obsessed with itself. So how do I look? How do I feel? What do people think? What do people say? And then we create lies through our whole life to feel good, ultimately, until we get to ourself. And that seeking for self is really the answer.
I agree with that 100%. The whole worrying about what other people think and you trying to appease what you think they expect of you, I think that's very true. And I think when you can finally get to the point where you, and I hate saying this because this is such an oversaid thing, but not caring what other people think. And you should care what people think. Like, it's important. I care what he thinks. I care what Jerome thinks. I care what my wife thinks. But I don't care what everybody else thinks, you know? And I think if you can truly, truly get to that point, you're going to, you know, like you talk about the ego and pride, and you can start doing things in your life that are going to take you to another level because you're not so concerned about looking stupid or foolish or something.
The truth is, it's none of your business what other people think of you.
That's a good point.
That's their business.
Yeah.
And if they want to think bad of you, that's their business.
So why are we so tied to that? Why do we give such a shit about that?
Oh,
why do you think?
I think it's grown over the year. I think it's always been an issue. People pleasing, all of that stuff has been a problem forever. But I really think that now we're in a period where that's really serious. I think that maybe honestly COVID might have stalled that a little bit. You know, we kind of, no one's out, no one, like, it's put people in a place where they've had to really look deep within. In a lot of cases.
I love it.
I think there's some good things about it, right? I don't know how we're going to come out of it. Like, I think we're going to come out of it with huge mental health issues, huge addiction issues, lots of discontent, and then there's going to be a whole other group of people that have found complete contentment, peace, joy, love, family. Like, their priorities have completely switched.
So let me ask you two questions. Number one, do you think that it's okay to lie to yourself? And it means like this. People think that I'm a morning person. I'm not. Every morning, I'm just as tired as everybody else. I do not want to get out of bed, but I have to motivate myself. And motivation to me lasts for about 5 seconds. I either have to get out of bed and go, or I'm staying in bed all day. So I lie to myself saying that you got this. You got this. I really don't. But I say that to myself to get myself going. Do you think it's okay for people to lie to themselves in that sense?
Of course. Why are you calling it lying?
Well, because I don't feel that way.
I know, but why? But it doesn't matter if you feel that way or not. Maybe it's just motivation.
Yeah, true.
So words are a really important thing and how we use them, and thoughts are things. So really, it really depends how you use that, right? You're telling yourself it's a lie. No one else is. Maybe no one else cares.
That's right.
You're just getting up in the morning and you're ready to go.
Second question: what is happiness?
Oh, come on.
So what is happiness?
Do we have 10 hours? Like, what is happiness to you? Like,
right? How is somebody living a happy life?
It's a great question. Let's go around the table and let's answer that question.
Okay.
What is something that makes you happy?
Right now?
Yeah, right now. Ian Rabb, what makes you happy?
I'll tell you, my dad just passed quite suddenly, about a month ago. And one thing that makes me happy right now is making sure my mom's life is full. And that I'm kind to her. That's pure happiness for me right now, that I can be there for my mother, especially after I blamed her for all my problems for 20 years.
Yeah. And did you ever address that to her and say, listen, I know I blamed you and I'm a piece of shit? And
I still do.
Yeah.
I still do. You know,
what'd she say to you?
She forgives me because I've been so good to her for the last 19 years.
Every mom forgives, but did she ever say, you little shit, you did drag me through this?
Yesterday, we were just, 2 days ago, we were just talking, and she reminded me, we were talking about my dad who just passed, and she reminded me that the only trouble her and my dad had in their relationship in periods of time of their life is what to do with Ian. Because my dad could not believe for $1 million that his son would become a drug addict. This resume I had and how I looked on the outside and what I did and what I completed and my successes, he couldn't believe it. And she knew it was happening, and they used to go at it. What should we do with Ian? Bring him home. Don't bring him home. So what was
the solution?
We still talk. We do still talk about it, but she's not angry and I'm not angry, and we're in a really good place about that. But I do remind her. I still have to remind her. She says sometimes, you said that I was the problem, and I said, Mom, you did nothing wrong. Like, I always have to remind her. Always.
RJ, what makes you happy?
Fulfillment. Like I said, I go through those 4 elements and I make sure that I'm hitting them all, right? I try to
give me something specific. Don't be vague. Just what's something that just right now, I don't know, maybe you had a great
I have
blowjob this morning.
I have a massive to-do. You know what?
What makes you happy?
It's all about delivering, right? I'm a man of my word. I get a lot of things done. I create a lot of action. You want success? I'm here. We'll grow it together, right? For me to be successful, a great fulfillment day is when I banged out I have a list of reoccurring tasks, and then I got my next list, and I get those all done. When I get those all done, plus I'm a great dad, plus I'm a great husband, like, like I said, I rate myself. And so if I feel like I'm sitting at close to 4s, I don't know why I go out of 4. If I feel like I go out, I'm a 3.8. I always give myself a 3.8.
But he's asking you a different question.
That's happiness to me.
But is happiness seeing your son or daughter?
Happiness is seeing my business grow, my friends grow, my family grow, and myself grow. How's that sound?
Yeah, that sounds good.
That's good.
Yeah.
What makes me happy is my condo. I got a brand new condo. That makes me happy.
Good.
It makes me happy that I see my neighbors across the street who own houses shoveling snow, and I don't do that shit anymore. That makes me pretty happy. Coming here and sweating 30 minutes a day makes me extremely happy. Being around people like RJ and Jerome that get fired up, and we're just on a different level than most people. We're loud, we do silly things, we laugh, and especially a guy my age, at 45, we're supposed to be serious and we're not supposed to move really that fast. I'm not supposed to wear short shorts or pink shirts. Yeah. And exactly, sour, kind of bitter towards the world. And I was lucky enough to not get sucked back into that world where I used to be. So something like that makes me happy too. Yeah.
I think there's things that are, like I just said, an action that just happened with my mom.
Yeah.
But it makes me happy to save people's lives. It makes me happy to reunite family. I could go on and on and on about the true things that make me happy. When a guy's eyes light up that I'm working with and they finally get it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And then they stay sober and they get a life and they get married and they get a career and and their family comes like that. I get blown away by that stuff.
Can you? I know. Sorry, I know everything's anonymous. I get it. But can you give us a story of a success story? Change the name, change the gender, just whatever. What was something that really, like, you remember this person who was just they were just down and out, and now they're champions?
Yeah. So it always brings tears to my eyes. There's a number of them, but there's one guy. I was in the property management and business, as I said. He decided he got early in recovery, wanted to be a plumber. So, of course, I introduced him to a plumber, and he started working with him. He thought he was stupid. He didn't think he could ever amount to anything. And now he's doing his master's in social work, helping people, like, in a relationship, in a great relationship with his parents. Like that to me is a huge success. I have another guy who was down and out at a young age, who's a pilot. I have another couple that are firemen and paramedics with families. Like, I could go on and on. Roland, I mean, like, you should have seen that guy 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay. He cries now. He cried a lot then. Okay.
You know him very well. That's so funny you say that.
Yeah. Like, I mean, he's one of my closest friends. But I mean, like. So there are lots of things, and every time I talk to him, I get happy. He's got a great a life now.
Yeah.
So I get happy when I get happy in business. I'm working on some stuff in the psychedelic plant-based industry.
Yep.
Like that stuff excites me, makes me happy. There's lots of things that we can do to make ourselves happy.
Yeah.
I think it's most important. One of the tricks that I've done over the last number of years since I got sober. Before bed every night, I write a list of things I'm grateful for. And the first thing I do when I open my eyes, before I look at my phone, before I turn off the alarm and I read those 12 or 15 things that I'm grateful for from the day before, and it changes my whole day.
Is it a different list every day?
Every day, different list.
Yeah.
That's a really hard thing to do.
That's an impossible thing to do.
I was doing that for a
good.
long time. Just write 3 things I'm grateful for, and I would sit there for 10 minutes.
Why?
I don't know.
It's tough. I agree. I don't know what I would write down either. I guess my condo. I always go back to the condo.
And then you feel like it's boring because you write the same thing.
Yeah.
Like, I'm grateful
there's
for my,
so many
my
things to
friends
be
and-
grateful. I mean, those things. There's those things that are pretty obvious, but like, I'm grateful for spirituality. Like, what would we do without looking in? I feel bad. That's where I feel bad for people, especially in this world that we live in. And I'm not talking about God or religion, but I feel bad for people that don't look within.
Right.
Because that's where all the answers are.
Yeah.
Conscience is everything.
Taking a moment to yourself, assessing it.
Yeah. Looking at your failures and your successes of the day. Like, those kind of things really can help people grow. And then ultimately, when they grow, there's such a domino effect in everything we do. You've probably witnessed that in your life. Look what you're doing. You guys are doing. But there's such a domino effect of the excitement that we can create in other people. And that should reflect back on who we are as people.
So you said reflect on the good and bad things that you did of the day. A lot of people get caught up in just the bad.
Always.
So what is your recommendation as an expert? Like, how do people overcome that? Or, if they start making a list in their head, all they're probably thinking about is the bad.
So create a spreadsheet, right? With positive things and
you said you're not an
negative
accountant.
Yeah. Sorry. I'll have someone create
Good drug
a
dealers
spreadsheet
don't
for
do
me.
spreadsheets.
Good.
I'll have someone create a spreadsheet for me.
Okay.
But have a spreadsheet with assets and liabilities. Did I lie today? Was I was I kind today? Like you could write about 10 things down and just check them off every day and look at your patterns in a month and look at your good patterns and your bad patterns. There's so many little things we can do. I mean, listen, there's a reason that so many people have written self-help books, right? But there's so many things that we can do that are practical and take minutes. Like how much time do we spend wasting time?
Yeah.
Right? Like we waste so much time in a day doing stupid shit that you can, if you can find those 5 minutes to keep your mind positive, I think it really helps.
I was going to ask you, going back to the happiness question. So should happiness be chased? Because, what makes you happy? Is it, do I go over here? Do I go over there? Like, how does that work? Like, I know happiness is such a big term, but
I think that I think we're both too small. All three of us are too small to define that, really. I mean, should it be chased? I mean, I think we should chase happiness, but are we chasing happiness? Or is ego involved or not? I guess is really the question.
Okay.
When you're looking for
define ego, sorry.
So, edging God out. No, I'm just joking. Ego meaning, what's really in front of us. I look at things that are healthy ego and unhealthy ego, right? But is it ego-based happiness? Meaning, does it make me feel good on the inside or the outside? The same stuff we were talking about.
So, like me buying a $100,000 car, am I buying that because it actually makes me happy on the inside? I feel good about it, or am I buying it because I want to show off to my neighbor?
I agreed.
Yeah.
Whenever I buy a new car, and I do buy very expensive cars, which I think is really, I'm starting to feel at this age is really stupid.
There's some luxuries that I can't live without. I'll tell you. I drive a high-end car too.
Yeah, but the first 4 days that I get it when it's brand new, I'm sitting straight up tall, like I'm looking around.
Yeah.
But then eventually that wears off. But so am I? Am I seeking happiness in that car or not? Then it just becomes a car. Right?
I'll give you a perfect example of happiness. Okay. And it goes completely against what you guys just said. So you guys like your fancy cars. I drive a 2004 F-150. My truck is
old. But you
old.
have a brand new condo, right?
But I have a brand new condo. But I also bought a property 20 years ago in the north end of Winnipeg for $37,000.
So you're saying you earned that condo.
I earned that condo.
So then you enjoy your condo.
I do. No, I do. But all I'm saying is what makes me happy and what I learned is, so let's go back to the days when I had a nightclub and I was selling cocaine and I had another business and money was just everywhere. And you know exactly what I'm talking about, where it's just, your pockets are flooding. You're tipping $100 for the shittiest service. Like, you're that guy, right? Yeah. And I had it all. Girls everywhere. I was the party guy, right? From the club that came back to Rick's place. I mean, I was the guy that every guy looked up at me like, oh my God, I wish I could be Rick and live his life for 5 seconds. And I was the most angry, pissed off individual, not happy with myself whatsoever, looking in the mirror. Now I live a very simple life, a very minimalist life. I, got myself completely out of debt. So I go to bed thinking about nothing other than like how great my king size bed is. I don't stress about, do I got to make a Visa payment or a mortgage payment or a car payment or none of that shit. So happiness to me is minimalism. So to give an actual answer here, and anybody who's watching, like what is it? Minimalism. Minimalize your life. It's easy to make money. It's not so people have a problem keeping and investing it.
Of course.
So basically what you did is you got rid of the ego. You got rid of all the things that you felt were unnecessary, and you stripped it down to the bare minimum.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah. And also stripping the ego allows you to become more things. Yeah. Because I was very much tied to being, you're tied to your career or you're tied to your business, you're tied to your image, right? Absolutely. And I can tell you this, at 40, like I never thought when I was in my 30s and early 40s that I was ever going to be a fitness coach, right? Yeah. I was always a businessman, a bar owner. I was always that guy that just went to the gym and lifted meathead weights, and then I turned my life around. I knew on the inside that something had to change. So that's when I found RJ and I found the gym. And then it just so happened that I transitioned right from being a member into being a coach. But I feel like by dropping that ego and not worrying about what other people think, my life has really blossomed into something awesome. And that's what makes me happy.
Well, that's awesome. I mean, you got there.
Yeah, exactly.
Some people never get there. Yeah. That's who I feel most sad for. Never mind drugs and alcohol, but I feel bad for people that never get there. They're seeking and looking and buying and trading and everything, and they never get to that place where they say, hey, I can be where my hands are, and I have enough. I am enough, and I have enough. And that's hard for me to say. I'll tell you, I think, alcoholics and addicts have huge egos and no self-esteem, or especially early in recovery. They just think they're the shit, but inside they feel bad, and that feeling bad can stick with you.
That's true. That's exactly what I felt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that feeling bad can stick with you. Like, I can go there in a second sometimes. I have to, the battle with addiction is not just when you get clean and sober, it's for the rest of your life. And you are constantly battling that feeling. True humility is being okay with yourself as you are in this moment, right now, in this time. Like I always say, can you live there? And where is there? In between the cloud. Like, can you live there? Because that's all we have. That's all we have. And if I can stay there, I can have a pretty fulfilling life. Is the minute I get out of there, I'm done. I'm done. Like I said to you earlier on, the gym has not been a great part of my life over the last 6 months. I look in the mirror and I criticize myself terribly instead of just saying, hey, it's time to go back.
Yeah.
So just to give context to our viewers, because a lot of our viewers are from the gym world, the happiness, and I don't think that there's anything wrong with chasing fancy things, shiny objects. But like you said, you have to put it into context and you have to enjoy it now. So in the gym world, it'd be like somebody wanting to lose 10 pounds. You could look at that person and from the outside, somebody's like, what 10 pounds do you have to lose? Well, that 10 pounds is 100 pounds to that person. So never mind. Don't worry about what they're focusing on. And if they're driven by the next 10 pounds and the next, I'm the last person to stop you from wanting to get better.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so if that person is wanting to chase the next 10 pounds, as long as they are here mentally. So a lot of people will say, you know what? I only lost 3 pounds this week. And then the rest of us are like, 3 pounds? What are you talking about?
That's great.
Right? That's great. Keep going. Go for the next 3. No problem.
Yeah.
But if they get into that negative mindset where it's like, I only lost 3 pounds. And then the worst is when people give up on themselves. Right? So they're like, I only lost 3 pounds, so I'm going to go eat cheesecake. Right? That's where I'm upset. If you're 3 pounds and you're negative, we could turn that into a positive. Let's keep it going. Yeah. Let's go to the next 10 pounds. You may be only 10 pounds right now, but let's go. Let's go to 0.
And
no
so
problem.
what if you eat cheesecake?
Exactly. Yeah. Enjoy it. And that's the key, is that you got to enjoy the journey. So for everybody out there that wants to chase shiny objects, get the nice condo, get the big house, I say do it. Do it. But do it with the right mindset.
Yeah. And for the right reason.
And the right reasons.
And just for the record, my next vehicle is going to be a brand new Range Rover.
There you go.
So I'm going from my 20-year-old Ford to a Range Rover, but I'm going in there to pay for it cash. I'm not going into debt for it.
I've had 3 Range Rovers and now I have 2 BMWs.
Yeah. Okay.
You're much better off getting a BMW.
Oh, I don't know. I'm a Mercedes guy.
Whoa. Let's have a little car talk here. Why? Tell me why.
I just had problems with them. I mean, I loved them. It felt good in them.
Yeah.
They drive great, but when I got into an X5, I was
X5s are nice.
I was like, I'm done. Like it's more like a. Anyway,
I would tell anybody, unless you have a guy, always get new. And the reason why you get new is because of the warranty.
Yeah.
Unless you want to take a full day and get stuck at Canadian Tire fighting with some guy over your tire, then, for me personally, I would rather just have a guy take care of it. Mercedes, they come and get my car and they go and warranty it for me.
Same with BMW.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's a whole mindset of its own. Listen, that's like first world problems.
It is big time first world problems.
It is, yeah.
Not having to shovel snow.
Yeah, exactly.
No. I earned that. I earned that. There's 20
so you're an earn it type of guy. So your advice to anybody is, and what Rick is looking at is the people that are always in the rat race, and then so they get ahead and then they buy something that they can't really afford, so they have to continue to put in more hours,
100%.
Spend more time away from their family, spend less time on their fitness, and then they're always trying to earn more money.
What I heard from him, I did hear the Range Rover part, but what I really heard is that he wants to pay cash.
Like he wants to earn it first, then
listen, I've been, again, and I'm not this way. I have lots of debt. Well, I own real estate too, but I have lots of debt. But I was looking at my mom and dad's life, who have been quite successful in their own life in real estate and other ways, and they have 0 debt. Like there is not one, like every visa's paid off every month. There's 0. Like I can't even imagine a life of 0 debt yet. Yeah. I think that would be an incredible thing to get to if we could in our lifetime.
Yeah. Well, when you breathe easier and you weigh less because you don't have the weight on the world on your shoulders. Yeah, it's a different feeling.
One thing I really discovered over this COVID is that everything will work out. As long as you're going in the right direction, things are going to work. I've seen people at the very bottom, and you've probably seen many of them.
Yeah.
and somehow their life just works out the way they want to work. And I think about a conversation I had the other day where a guy wanted to go into a different industry. And I think that it's great, but people got to realize whatever you're doing right now, it doesn't matter where you go. Whatever you're doing right now, you're going to continue to do it. During COVID, you would think that I would chill out, do less. I actually did more during the lockdown.
You're right. There's things I did more of and things I did less of, interestingly, being isolated so much. Yeah. But I think that it's more about what you think. Mm-hmm. You put good into life, you get good out.
Yeah.
You put selfish, self-centered, self-seeking actions into life, you're
going to sink.
You get a sink. Like it becomes that simple. And we started this discussion in recovery. It's the same in recovery. Mm-hmm. So you were questioning whether it's a disease. Of course, it's a disease. I mean, it's a disease in the DSM. It's a disease based on what doctors think. Mm-hmm. But really, it's the whole process of recovery over the years. I'm not any more recovered at almost 20 years sober than I was at 3 months sober.
Why do you say that?
Yeah,
because it really takes daily action, and it takes daily action to stay in that. Yeah. Is the glass half full or is the glass half empty? Like, how am I gonna rise up?
You still Jones for anything?
No, I can have everything. I've done interventions. I've walked in onto everything. Okay. I Jones for the inappropriate behaviors.
Okay.
Give me an example.
I'm not going to get into this.
No, let's do it.
My mother might hear this.
Are we talking being a sexual deviant?
Well, I was.
Okay. Yeah, because I 100% was, and that was the number one driving factor of the reason why I did cocaine.
100%. Well, meth too.
Is that the same thing? I never smoked meth or did meth.
You should try it, actually.
Yeah. What's funny, we had a
second
our guest last week. Our guest last week actually said, after she started talking, I'm like, well, shit, mayit we should all be on meth.
Yeah, what's wrong with a little meth?
Super productive. She got through school better.
I did also. I mean, listen, I was doing that shit in optometry.
So what if we all started microdosing with meth? Do you think that could unlock potential in our brains? Like, should we always look at drugs as a negative, or can we ever look at drugs as a positive?
You have to remember something. Dexamethamphetamine, which is a diet pill, which really is Adderall, which is really Vyvanse, which is really all of the drugs for ADHD, is one structure away from methamphetamine. Okay. So have we used methamphetamine for the proper use? You have to remember, methamphetamine was invented by the Japanese to keep their soldiers awake, and then Hitler was injected with it for five times a day, and then even 10 years ago, when the I don't know if you remember, there was some Canadian pilots or Air Force that were shot down by some Americans on Go tablets. What do you think Go tablets are? I mean, there's been uses for it.
Yeah.
I mean, I think in saying that, it's very different. 5 years ago, I was an abstinence junkie. We don't need nothing. We can have a spiritual experience through the 12-step programs. We can go to have spiritual experiences through the Creator and through First Nations ceremony and yada yada yada. I'm really into trying to understand plant-based medicine, psilocybin, MDMA, ketamine for massive depressive people, iboga for addiction. Like, we're coming into a different world. I think that's going to create a whole nother level of understanding, really, of what the brain can do and how we can use plant-based medicine to make things better for people.
Well, I think we're both in agreement with the testosterone replacement, the youth revitalization, like the growth hormone. I mean, Stallone's 76. Yeah. The guy looks like he's 40.
Yep. Well, I actually went to, when I was visiting my parents in Palm Desert one year, 10 years ago, I went to one of those clinics where they
anti-aging.
And, small amounts of testosterone. I've never done it. I'd like to, actually. I'd like to do it if there was a doctor that would do it.
They need it here.
Rick,
let's go. Yep.
If there was a doctor here that would do it, I would absolutely go.
Yeah.
I would absolutely go.
You know what? In Manitoba, it's such a testosterone. We don't talk about that.
Yeah, I don't know why.
No doctors know about it. Nobody will ever give you a prescription for it. It's so hard.
But if you're over the age of 40,
no,
why not?
Yeah. Well, I mean, for the record, I am on TRT, and I have been for over 2 years, something like that.
And you said your knees, like your joints.
My knee was so bad at one point, and it was single-handedly one of the main reasons why my knee got better. Wow. It was crazy. So TRT is super important. When I got tested for it, my doctor said, you're at the level of a 90-year-old man. I can't. He goes, the only reason that you get up and function and work out and coach is just sheer motivation. That's it. I had no testosterone left in my body. Wow. So I'm a big believer in TRT, and I'm a big believer that every man should, at the very least, get their levels checked.
Big
you know,
time. Yeah.
because that's that's a man's juice.
It is.
That's our number one thing that keeps us active. You know,
Yeah.
so and low TRT or testosterone is also going to cause weight gain. You know, less muscle mass. You know, everything that we don't want, we're going to get if we have a low test. You know, and then as far as GH, growth hormones, or the anti-aging, yes, for some reason there's a stigma associated to it. And I don't know why. I feel like there should be GH clinics or youth revitalization clinics for everybody.
Yeah.
You know, why wouldn't we do it? What is the? I mean, I don't care if somebody wants to say, Rick, you're cheating. Well, fuck you. I work out every day and eat vegetables all the time. But if I want to enhance my body, why wouldn't I? What
did I say before? It's none of anybody's business.
Yeah, but you understand, like, what is the negative stigma? Just like a sleeping pill. Well, I mean, I've taken a Zopiclone sleeping pill for years and years to go to sleep, and people be like, oh, you shouldn't take pills, go to sleep, blah blah blah. But I'm like, but sleep is the thing that nobody does. Like, why wouldn't I use a little life hack?
Should I tell you what I think about Zopiclone as an expert in addiction?
Yes.
Get on a different sleeping pill.
Oh, really?
Why? What do you mean?
Very hard to get off of.
Yeah, I don't think I'd ever be able to get off without going through some sort of...
There's also some physiological stuff. I mean, there's newer stuff that can be used besides Zopiclone.
Okay.
That's much safer.
What is it? You know the name?
Like even Trazodone, which is really a first-generation antidepressant.
Mm-hmm. The problem with those Trazodone, so I've tried Trazodone, and I take Zops as well. And anyway, so without going into it, I find the Trazodone gives me crazy dreams. I'm up in the middle of the night, and then I wake up and I'm a little bit loopy. Yeah. So any of those oxalones or any of the, I wake up and I feel like I'm flying on a kite. You know what I mean? I don't like that.
I've seen people have a hard time in their 70s and 80s get off of Zopiclone, and at a time when a Zopiclone would make them trip and break their hip.
I get it.
There's been a lot of, I mean, I just see later in life it's a really difficult thing to conquer when you really.
I don't disagree with you, but I think there's certain drugs that I'm just going to be on for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
You know, but these are enhancers. So a lot of people say, well, I'm going to be on blood thinners or anti-inflammatories or cholesterol. You know, like, and you'll be on that for the rest of your life. Chances are you ain't getting off that. Coffee.
Caffeine.
He's always.
I'm not judging.
He's a big caffeine. Like everybody, we're all addicted. There's there's coffee in here. I've been sucking on it for 5 hours already. I get it, but I think that I think when it comes to drugs, I think they're looked at in a negative way. But I think there's so many positives to it. The problem is the abuse that we all go with. Yeah. Because I mean, Percocets, goddamn, that's the best thing. But 1 is great, but 7 is better. You know,
if you like to drool all over yourself.
So Rick,
if you're into drooling,
to answer your question about why is this not prevalent here, and I think that it is prevalent. I just in Manitoba we're very far behind. And look at the gym. Okay, so women used to look at gym like, hey, I go to a gym, I lift weights, I get bulky and huge. Right now that stigma's gone. Obviously, 90% of our population here are women, and they're lifting like I had a girl lifting 120 pounds there. You know what I mean? So I think that right now, I think that we're 10 years, if not further away from it. And I think guys like you and me are upset because this type of thing should be accelerated. It should be more known about the addictions, the opportunities that people have to get out of their addictions. I think that what you're doing isn't as known. I wouldn't have known about it until we started talking about this stuff maybe 6 months ago. Yeah. I didn't know there was help out there for people. So
but the truth is, I mean, let's talk about addiction help. There isn't good help in Manitoba. To want to go private, you can get people help right away. If you want to go public, you're waiting 2 to 4 months for a bed. I mean, it's actually atrocious.
So why is that?
It's actually atrocious. It's actually just. I ran in politics I tried a few years ago, and I really wanted to change everything from the inside. I think it's disgusting that if you have cancer, I don't think it's disgusting if you have cancer, you get treated right away. Yeah. But I think just like cancer and you get treated right away, a person that's ready to get help with their addiction should be treated right away. The stigma, I'm sorry, it's better than it's ever been, but it's still out there. Yeah. It's still, I mean, even some of your comments early on about it really being a choice. Drinking alcohol is a choice. It's not a choice for an addict. Just say no would have worked. Right? Just say no. Right? No. Okay, I couldn't say no.
Well, let me hit you with another unpopular opinion then. Do I want my taxes going to help all of the drug addicts and alcoholics in the world? I don't think so.
Really?
No, I mean, as a former, drug addict, I don't think it is my responsibility or his or yours to pay for Jerome's alcoholism through added taxes.
Jerome's an alcoholic. Do you want to talk after the show, Jerome?
I'm just using
We
Jay
could-
Jerome as
we
an
could-
example.
I've seen
We
Jerome
sit-
have one drink in 4 years.
He's my dartboard for certain things once in a while. But you know what I mean? Like, at what point do people take some self responsibility? Is what I'm trying to get
All
to.
I'm telling I believe it's a disease,
Yeah.
and if we could take responsibility, we would.
Yeah.
No one wants to be a drug addict. You're lucky. You're one of the few that could just say I'm done.
Yeah.
But listen. I don't know you well enough yet, and I'm not evaluating you, nor am I trying to assess you.
Yeah.
You could have other addictions.
Yeah.
Minimalism could be an addiction.
Yeah, big time.
No,
It is.
no
Yeah.
debt could be an addiction.
Yeah.
100.
The gym could be an addiction.
Yeah.
Human growth hormone, like whatever.
Yeah.
They all could be considered addictions and used for the wrong reason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I haven't assessed you enough, and those things are not causing you to.
Well, you just
need
assessed me
treatment.
perfectly.
They're not-
Fucking
they're-
perfect.
You know what? I think it comes down.
They're not causing you to go to treatment tomorrow.
Yeah.
But some other addict that might be on other drugs,
Right.
and opiates can't get off.
And if you have give, right? So like our taxes, we're like, where do I don't really care if it's going to go to an alcoholic or a druggie. That's fine. It's just like, why are our roads so bad? Well, we got to raise taxes. Why? Because our roads are so bad. Well, you just complain the roads are bad, so you got to pay more. Like, it's just, the money goes.
Yeah,
Obviously, we
listen.
don't believe 100% in the government.
But let me tell you one thing about addiction and homelessness. For every dollar the government spends, you get a $12 return.
Break that down. What do you mean?
So, different than any other cancer or other diseases. If you spend $1, and you get someone's successful, and it's not $1, it's usually 20,000 or whatever, right?
Okay.
But 20,000 saves 20,000 plus times 12. No more interaction with the law. No more interaction with the hospitals. No more ambulances. No more police. No more correctional facilities. No, like,
So it's saving you money.
not only that,
point. It's a good point.
they get a job. People get a job and start working and paying taxes. They help others. Like, they have a family. Like, there's so many contributing factors to helping someone within homelessness and addiction
Yeah.
that it's so different than any other disease, because all of our medical budgets are spent. All of our correctional budgets, like all of our families' budgets are spent in every province. It's not just Manitoba. All of that money is spent. So why not spend it on helping people get better versus helping people get
Return on investment. Now
Return
you're
on
speaking my
investment.
language. I get it.
Right.
Yeah.
One for it's $12.
Yeah. Okay, I see it.
Where in business can you make $12 on every dollar
Yeah.
other than cocaine
Math.
or methamphetamine? Right? But no, meth it's about
24.
$25.
Yeah.
Certainly not much legal, right? Not
Yeah.
much legal.
But you know what I'm saying,
I do
right?
know.
Like, so I'm like, that's why I'm in the addiction. That's why I'm in the addiction help business. That's why I became an interventionist. That's why I do interventions with families. That's why I went into the private drug treatment business. I started Aurora. I'm not there anymore, but there was a definite need. And should government be paying for everybody? Yes. There is a problem with that too, in that everybody thinks that they can get help 14 times.
Right.
I'll tell you something that what I've learned over the number of years that I've been doing this, which is almost 20. In the business, I started a charity. I have a charity. If anybody that wants to help it, called 210 Recovery and Destiny House for people coming out of treatment centers. Everybody has to go there. They have to work. They have to get a job. They're not flop houses, right? And then there's reasons for those principles that are engaged in all that stuff. But what I've learned over all these years in doing this work, if someone has skin in the game, they have a better chance of success.
Absolutely.
So if even a family, if addiction treatment is $20,000, you know that the addict, first of all, is spending $100 to $500 a day, and then they're going to complain about a $20,000 treatment bill, or the family for that matter. But the truth is when people have skin in the game, it changes the dynamic and changes the answer.
Yeah.
People seem to get well.
I agree 100%. Return on investment, good point. I didn't look at it that way. I agree with it now. And yes, if you want to put a little money in, pay for it, for sure. No problem. Absolutely.
So I think we have to revamp how we look at our addiction systems publicly and privately.
Yeah.
I think the private system can do it way cheaper,
Yeah.
and I'm proof of that. But families have to pay for it. So there should be private public partnerships, and people that can afford 10 grand should pay 10 grand, and people that can afford 20 grand should pay 20 grand.
I agree.
Two-part question for you. Number one, how would somebody assess if they're addicted to minimalism, alcohol, drugs, whatever it might be? And then number two, what's the first step for them to get out of that addiction?
Okay, so again, how do you feel on the inside? How are your relationships? Do you feel consciously separated, disconnected, not a part of, separate from, adopted in a perfectly normal family? Like your skin doesn't fit. Like I always, when I talk about addiction, it's like another voice. It's almost like schizophrenia, but it's your own voice. And you are chirping in your brain all day. Blah, 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 blah. How do I look? How do I feel? How do people think? And then, like, there's this chirping going on that doesn't stop. When you find a drug or alcohol, that chirping stops, right? So really, what happens is, how do we quiet our minds without drugs and alcohol? Right. So when I go and trying to assess someone, I always go to those places. How did you feel as a kid? Like, did you feel like you didn't fit? Like, did you feel like everybody was talking about you? Did you always think, was your mind going all the time?
Did you feel like that?
From the time I was 4, man.
Really?
For no reason. Like, if you would have looked at my life from the outside, good looking, girls, hockey, sports, every club at school, popular. Like, there was nothing, like, none of my friends would have predicted that I became the addicted person in the group, right? Like, everything from the outside looked normal, but on the inside, I was in pain. Like, I just didn't know where I fit. My skin never felt right unless I was drunk or high or doing that stuff that made me feel like Superman.
Yeah.
And then the drugs stopped working. At some point, you're doing that shit and you're like, oh, I'm such a loser.
Yeah, I know. It makes it worse.
It makes it worse.
Yeah.
Right.
So what's the B? The answer. How do I get started? How does somebody get started?
Some specific answers. Like what can somebody do? Like, let's just say 5 top things to turn your life around.
Like, people could be addicted to food, right? I'm addicted to eating cookies at night. So how do, I'm addicted to alcohol.
Well, according to you guys, just stop eating just stop eating cookies.
Yeah.
That's right. I mean, you guys got
that is my answer. Just stop fucking eating cookies.
Right.
Stop buying cookies.
Right. I think it's more complex than that. But I do think that, we have to look at where our lives are. Most importantly, again, how are we connected to other people?
Yeah.
How are our connections? How are our relationships? What does our family look like? How am I feeling on the inside?
Right.
It's not the cookie that's the problem.
So would you say seek a community to be a part of?
That's one thing. I was talking to you about Carl Jung. And Carl Jung did say, one thing he said, as a resolution to this feeling of not conscious separation, he said, honest communication with friends protected by a wall of human community.
Okay.
Honest communication with friends protected by a wall of human community. Not a gym is that.
Yeah.
A church or a synagogue is that. Self-help groups are that. Like really get connected to a group of people you can be honest with and share with, and ultimately you'll see the changes. I went into a few high schools about 10 years ago, and I usually went in and spoke about drugs and alcohol, but I went in and did a couple of experiments at a couple of these schools, where at lunchtime we created sharing circles, where people could come and talk about their feelings. And there was changes that happened in the dynamic of that high school just by the fact that people felt there was a safe place they could come and share. So creating those environments, I think, are really first steps in really. I mean, that's why First Nation culture works. First Nations, that's, sweat lodges and sharing circles and smudging. I mean, anything we can get connected to that has meaning, right? I mean.
What about nutrition? What about
nutrition? I'm a firm believer of that. When I'm in the good, right now I'm not in the good with the nutrition.
Sure.
As a matter of fact, I think I'm going to try isogenics. You probably have a feeling about that, but and the gym. Like I think I'm going to try a couple things. But when I'm off, I'm off. When I'm on, I'm on. The question is, how do you not beat yourself up, right? Like, how do you just say, okay, I'm off right now? Well, like you said earlier, my off right now is, okay, I'll order gondola tonight.
Yeah.
Instead of my off right now could be, hey, I should have a veggie burger with no bun. I think, you're asking some really good pointed questions, but I think it's a little bit more complex than that.
Well, I think you answered it, though, is that if you think that you should assess your life, you're talking about assessment, assess where you're at, how do you feel, and then you can determine if you need to make change.
Right, but if you're addicted, you're in denial anyway. You're lying about your life. We have to remember there's so much lying that goes on with addiction. Like, you lie to yourself, you believe your lies, your family, you tell your family lies, your friends have everybody around you is in this lie with you, and you can't see past your nose and you can't see past that lie. So the most successful business that I've had is my intervention business. When you can actually bring 6 or 7 loving people together in a loving way to intervene on an identified subject that's having problems with drugs and alcohol and going to completely train wreck their life, you can actually have great success because you can create a surrender in their life. So really, enabling is a big problem. Like there's always one enabler in every family. There's always one angry person in every family. And the family is just as sick as the addicted person. And what I've learned in the last 5 years more than previous, if you don't treat the whole family, you're going to have a failure with even the person that's the identified subject or the addicted person.
So the 5 people that they surround themselves with.
5 close people that can, we want these 5 people to get a yes answer from them. So it's a little bit more manufactured than yes, the only 5 people they hang around, because you don't want 3 addicts that are going to drag them out of the house. You want the good girl, the friend of theirs in high school that dropped them because their addiction took over, or you want the ex-wife or the ex-husband or the kids or the parents or people that are really have an influence on that person's life.
So a guy like me probably wouldn't be good at an intervention, eh?
You actually would be great at it. Actually, you'd
Stop drinking, you fucking asshole. That'd be my thing, as opposed to
We're
showing
actually
going to
be opening up a booth.
You
and
actually,
Rick's gonna stand
you
there.
actually would be good at an intervention.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be like, because often I'll say, well, first of all, I walk in the room and often people say, I know who you are, let's go. Like there's no intervention.
Oh, yeah.
Because I've been doing it for so long and I'm so public about it. But, there's often times when I'm like, hey, man, shut up, get in the car.
Yeah.
And like the intervention is over. You're a spoiled brat, get in the car.
Yeah.
Which you would be great at.
Yeah, I would be good at that. And I think that's the only part that I'd be able to tolerate, because I remember how I was, and I know I was surrounded by junkies and alcoholics, and the lying and the manipulation of their boyfriends or girlfriends or family, and just basically the manipulation, right? The 1 second they're feel sorry for me, the next minute they're yelling and screaming and they're trying to throw down with you, like
Jekyll and Hyde.
It just drives me nuts. And that is why I am such a proponent of not drinking, because I found when I had the club, how people were Jekyll and Hyde. They were your best friend. You guys were solid. It would be like him and me as a friendship, and then all of a sudden he'd have a bunch of drinks and we're straight enemies. And I was just like, how the hell did him and I go sideways? You have that relationship.
So that's a really good point, because I believe conscience has a lot to do with this, right? We were born with conscience. It's deep down within us. It knows right away if we're right from wrong. And I think a lot of, in your recovery, like what I see in you, and I'm not really assessing you, but I am a little, is I see you like you're the ice melted from your heart and you developed a conscience again, right? Like it's very hard to have a conscience in that life that we are living.
Yeah, it is.
It's very hard because you can't feel, because you're destroying people's lives. Like you are really, like you're responsible for destroyed lives.
Yeah.
It's their choice or not, but whatever. Yeah. But the truth is when conscience comes back, we have the world at our fingertips. Yeah. Conscience is a great thing.
It's funny you say that, because I live with a little bit of regret from the whole selling of drugs. Like I've looked past it. I've completely cut that life out of, or that part of my life out, especially the friends and the people. But there was a time when I was selling cocaine, and there was a guy, he was a little bit older than me, a real charismatic guy. And he worked within the medical field as far as like selling medical equipment. And he owed me money one time. And normally it was never an issue. And I would cuff him thousands of dollars, because he was guy had a job. He was not a degenerate. He had a great car. He looked great. And then all of a sudden one day he decided he wasn't going to pay me. And I went and paid him a visit, and which he called the cops on me, and the cops came down and said, don't you ever go over there. And I was not, and his parents were there, and I was not mean to the parents. I was just like, hey, is he here? No, he's not here. Okay, tell him I stopped by. Of course, he took that as an aggressive way, because he wasn't there to see the context of the conversation.
And he was guilty.
Exactly. And he knew he was wrong, so he needed to flip the script by trying to come back to me. Anyways, that didn't solve the problem, so of course it went in a different direction, where I sent somebody to go and talk to him, and then it really went off the rails. And at that point, we completely went sideways, and the relationship was very hostile. He did end up making small payments through a friend, but it wasn't enough to cover. Fast forward about 6 months, he walks in out of the blue. So now we hate each other, right? We had the fuck you conversations, and you're dead to me. Fast forward, I'm going to say 6 months, maybe a little bit longer. He comes out of nowhere, clears up his debt. And that was it. And I was like, holy shit. 2 days later, he's dead.
Oh, wow.
He's dead. He OD'd. Wow. Had an issue, and not on cocaine, just took a bunch of pills and died. And I just thought to myself, so 2 days before that, he must have been knowing that he was going to do this. And 2 days before he came to square up or mend his relationships or whatever, that was going through his head. And I just sit there and think to myself, was I part of that? Like, did I create this monster inside his brain that he now took his life? Because he came and saw me 48 hours before, which means he was thinking about me, right? So to this day, when I say, like, and I even put it in our talking points, the regrets that I have would be that. I didn't know that was going to happen. Obviously, you can't predict it. And when you're selling drugs, you have to maintain a level of, like, you got to pay me, you know what I mean? And if you're not going to, I'm going to come and get it from you. But did I push too hard?
Listen, you never know.
I don't know.
I know people in Chicago that have died of AIDS because of, like, not because of drugs, but their sexual promiscuity because of the drugs I sold them.
Yeah.
Leaving wives, ending up in bathhouses. Like, there's just so many stories.
Yeah.
I've always decided that as long as I live now on this side of the coin, as long as I keep doing good, it makes up for all the bad. And I actually make a point of, like, people would say, why do you do recovery 24 hours a day? Like, early on, I was obsessed with recovery. You might say addicted.
Yeah.
But I had a lot of things I needed transgressions I needed to make up for.
Yeah.
And I do that by reuniting families and helping loved ones and helping people get, before often I would navigate people in the public system. Now I work in the private system, and I'll do both. If people can't afford it, I'll help them. I don't care.
Yeah.
My phone number is open 24 hours a day. My people can message me on Messenger 24 hours a day. I get called to action a lot, and I'm willing to help families for that exact reason.
Cool.
So I don't have to have regret.
Ian, we're going to end the conversation here because we're actually over our time. That's how interesting this conversation was. This is our longest podcast, actually. But I'm going to leave it with this. So if you're having issues, you want to reach out to a guy like Ian. He just said he's open to listening to anybody's issues. Seek a community, have an open communication with somebody. Nutrition, working out, that's something that RJ and I would certainly recommend. And, 5 people you surround yourself with, get rid of them. So everybody do yourself a favor, YouTube under Fit Club Media. Subscribe to the channel, help us out so we can get some traction and get this out to the world. Thanks, Nick, for coming down. Appreciate it.
Yeah.